Hey there, Care Disruptor. Today I am talking about one of the most difficult decisions you will have to make when it comes to caring for your loved one with dementia. That is the decision to move them into a care home. This is a decision that my sister and I made over a year ago now, and it was definitely one that we debated. We flipped roles all the time. We changed our minds. It took us a long time to make this decision. And there are so many emotions that go into this decision, which could be a whole other video on its own. Today, I'm going to talk about five things that we considered, or five things we suggest you consider when you're making this decision. By the way, if you're new here, welcome. This is Disrupt Dementia. I'm Pam Ross, and my sister Amanda and I are caregivers for our mother, who has a rare form of dementia called posterior cortical atrophy, as well as Alzheimer's. And we are sharing our journey, tools, tips, and all the things we've learned to help you if you're on this journey too. So today is all about making that decision and some things to consider if you're making the decision to move your loved one into a care home. I think of these as five S's. I'll just name them all and then I'll dive into kind of what they looked like or what they could look like for you. Safety, sociability, skill set, sanity of yourself, and sound judgment. So, safety is probably one of the, if not the most important one that came into our decision making. Once our mom was starting to have falls frequently, um, there was stairs in the home in both of our homes. We could not leave her alone, and we were having trouble even like halfway up the stairs, her getting out of breath, or we're worried that she might not make it. She had a couple of falls that were quite serious. One in the middle of the night at home where my sister lived with her, and my sister had to call an ambulance because she couldn't actually get her up after she fell. So we were having these sorts of things happen much more often. By the way, we were tracking these things in our dementia tracker, which you can get as a download in Excel or Google Sheets at disruptdementia.com. So we were tracking this and we were seeing that these falls and safety concerns were happening more and more frequently. I talked about one in an article that I was interviewed for on Yahoo, where I had to leave my mom for 10 minutes to take the dog out. I put on the camera on my phone so I could like hear her. And I gave her something to do while I left. I left, and by the time I got to the park downstairs, she had left the view of the camera, stopped doing the laundry that I had asked her to fold, and I knew she was making her way up the stairs. I heard the creak of the stair on the way up, and then I heard a bang. And I was running back home, panicking. I can still remember the panicked feeling that I had, thinking like I don't know what I'm walking into when I get home and find her at the bottom of the stairs. She did get up from that fall, but these kinds of falls were happening more and more often. So her safety was definitely a concern. We needed to get her into a place where she wasn't running into dangers like stairs or like fall opportunities, even like hot ovens, all of those things. She just didn't have the ability to manage through that. So safety, 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 number one. The second one is sociability. So for our mother, she had a small group of friends, but quite honestly, dementia is one of the most isolating things. I would say people are almost afraid to continue socializing a lot of times. So she still does have a couple of friends who occasionally make an effort. And she has a couple of family members who make an effort. But really, her main social network was my sister and I. And that's just not enough. One of the key factors in dementia is lack of a social network. And the importance of that social network is so important to kind of stave off the continuous progression and hold that off as long as you can. So we really wanted to get her being more social, giving her some people to talk to that might be going through similar things, some people her same age, some people outside of her daughters that she might not want to share everything with, although we are very close. So the sociability was really, really important. And in fact, I do wish sometimes that we had moved our mom sooner because by the time we did move her, it was hard for her to remember people she had met. So it was hard, she wasn't really making new friends. She was meeting people every day and with people every day, but she wasn't necessarily building those stronger connections. And I see some of the ladies there who have lived in the home for a longer time and maybe moved in before they had a memory issue or a physical issue. And the friends that they made because they moved in and had these peers to build friendships with. And, as one or others of them have progressed, whether it's with dementia or physical abilities declining, they still have these strong connections. So I do sometimes wish we had maybe thought about that sooner so she could have some of these friends who knew her as she continues to decline. So sociability is number two. Number three is skill set. These are kind of like life skills. So for us, we were able to, my sister lived with my mom when she got dementia, so we had someone with her all the time. When I moved home, we would switch homes. So one of us was living with her all the time, or my mom was living with me for, a day or two every other week. So we were with her a lot to manage some of the things you have to do through life, like grocery shopping and cooking and all of the daily things that you have to do, your daily kind of skills that you need to kind of use every day. Um, you may have a loved one who actually lives alone, and so this skill set issue may come up sooner. Now, there may be some home support that you can bring in or something else to help with this, but it is something to consider. Can they do the groceries? Can they cook their meals? Can they manage simple things like turning on television or doing laundry and all of these basic life skills that help you to have a full life? So for our mom, she couldn't really do anything on her own, from turning on the TV to changing a channel to cooking to laundry. We found her, mixing up, like putting the dryer sheets in the washing machine so that the clothes weren't actually clean. They were just smelling of bounce. Um, or like, she would take something out of a cupboard and dump it all over the floor because she couldn't manage like removing a lid or knowing what was in something to even know you couldn't open it upside down. So there was constant frustrations with things if she tried to do something on her own. Um, you know, she would try to clean the kitchen and we would come down and like everything is everywhere and she couldn't figure out how to put things back. So she would be really frustrated a lot of times. She would try to go to the grocery store and get so confused and upset that, we'd have to go and get her, or, she'd come home really, really upset. So the skill set piece was important, even though we lived with her. But for you, if you don't live with your loved one, even maybe more important to put in some things to help or consider that move. The fourth thing is sound judgment. Judgment is one of the factors of dementia, the making decisions. And there are so many daily decisions and small little decisions that we are making all the time. I think the research shows that we make around like 30,000 decisions a day, and most of them are so unconscious. But for someone who has dementia and is losing that decision making ability, that issue of sound judgment is starting to show cracks through all of those daily decisions. So, some of the sound judgment lapses that we've noticed in our mom was she, threw out her license plates in the recycle bin, just throwing them out. She threw out her iPad full of all her data, all of her photos, everything was on her iPad, and she just threw it out. We couldn't find it one day and she was like, "Oh, I threw that thing out. I didn't know I needed it." What to wear. for the weather, like those kinds of decisions. All of these little decisions that we make easily every day and unconsciously, she couldn't make those with sound judgment anymore. So, sound judgment, and are they able to make these little micro decisions all the time with sound judgment? And then the fifth factor, the fifth S, is sanity. And this is a lot about your caregiver sanity. For my sister and I, we were switching houses. It felt like we were living out of suitcases. It wasn't great for our mom either, moving from my house to her house and having us interchangeably with her all the time. Um, for us, we both run our own businesses. So, finding time to run your business while managing someone in the home who has dementia, it got to the point where we couldn't leave our mom alone for more than 10 to 15 minutes. So we couldn't, have a meeting. We couldn't have any downtime on our own. I remember times when my mom would either be staying here at my home or I would be staying at her home while my sister stayed here. And I would get up so early just to have like a little, like an hour of quiet time, an hour by myself before having to do all the care. And so it started to be really hard. And I remember the guilt I would feel when I would be sitting having my coffee in the morning because I had gotten up at like 5:30 a.m. so that I could try to have that and, thinking I would have at least an hour and then I would hear her moving or my camera motion sensor would go off at like quarter to six and the dread I would feel and like the letdown I felt and then very rapidly the guilt that I felt about feeling those things about my mom who I love desperately was really impacting my sanity and was really hard, which also leads to the guilt of moving someone who you dearly love into a care home. But when my sister and I talked about all of these factors, so safety, sociability, the skill set, and those frustrations with daily activities of living, the sound judgment and the lack of that, and then our own sanity. This was the best decision that we could make. So I hope that helps you with some things to weigh in your considerations and to think about when you're trying to make that decision. Chances are, if you're thinking about whether you should consider that, there is a reason that you're thinking about it. And a lot of dementia experts will say it's probably too late when you get there. For us, like I said, I think we may have been better off moving her a little sooner so she could have built some social connection with people in the home before she declined more. But it's a hard decision. It is one of the hardest decisions. So I wish you all the best in making it. I mentioned our tracker. I want to remind you, download our tracker. It will help you in making this decision when you see the things that are going on and how often. And for us, it was those falls coming up much more often in our tracker. We really realized it was time to make sure that she was safe. So good luck if you're on this journey. Please leave questions, comments, so that we know what you'd like to learn. We will share our story, share our journey, and continue to do more research to share with you. All the best.